last musician say how much I love the choir and the orchestra. They did great. I thank Mike Feinberg, Dave Levin. Thank you, Richard Barr. Thank you to all the teachers, staff, and school leaders who are here. I want to thank the KIPP board members who are here and the investors who make all these wonderful schools possible. I especially want to thank Martha and Bruce Karsh for asking me to come. Thank you, Wendy Kopp, for starting Teach for America. I want to thank the Fishers, the Waltons, everybody else who put their money in this, without which the rest of us couldn't be here cheering. And I want to say a special word of thanks to one of your board members, Jose Villarreal from Texas, who supported me for president when only my mother thought I could be elected. Even when Hillary and Chelsea were undecided, Jose was there. I also say, I know there are people from KIPP schools here all over the country, but I'd like to say a special word of greeting to those from KIPP Delta Collegiate in my home state. Rated the second best high school in the state by U.S. News and World Report. Which makes the first point I want to make to all of you. Everybody knows that 87% of the KIPP students come to school eligible for the school lunch program because they come from families that don't have a lot of money. The Mississippi Delta, where KIPP Delta is located, is save only for the Native American lands without gambling, the lowest income part of America. But our children are not poor. They are rich in their potential. And KIPP I also know there are a few hundred people watching us in an overflow room, so thanks to the fire marshal for keeping them safe, and thanks to them for accepting the technological connection. Now, when I ran for president more than 20 years ago, when I started, that's hard to believe, I had been a governor for a decade, actually a little more, 11 years. And I'd spent an enormous amount of time in schools. And I went around in my campaign speeches in the primary with 5 opponents. When I started, I was running 5th of the 6 people in the polls. No one knew who I was. And I always talked about the importance of education and how we needed to support a national movement for charter schools. Now, here's the point. Before all the young people here were born, when I was given this speech, there was exactly 1 charter school in America, in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I think that California had approved, but not the charter schools, but had not set up any by then. So my political advisor said, "Governor, you are nuts. No one knows what these things are. And there's only 1 of them. We got high unemployment. We got enormous expenses for people to go to college. Healthcare costs are running away. We've got all these challenges. And you keep talking about these charter schools. There's just 1 of them." And I said, "Yeah, but I want people to hear it, because I want to spark their imagination, because what made America great was constant innovation. And we were set up to innovate." When the Federalist Papers were written, before the Constitution was ratified, to make a case for why we should be one nation, the founding fathers who wrote them referred to the states of the United States, then there would just be 13, as the laboratories of democracy. What did that mean? They wanted them to innovate, believing that if they found something that worked, it would be followed. And I used to tell people all the time, I was the longest serving governor in America when I was elected president, and I used to say, you know, there were several things that we did when I was governor of Arkansas where we were the first state in the country to do it. But I was always proudest when I was the second state to do something, because I proved I was being faithful to the founding fathers and their vision of a laboratory of democracy. Those of you who have been part of this movement should be proud of that. By the time I left office, we had 2,000 charter schools, all getting some federal funding support. We got the annual budget up to $190 million, and I left money in the budget when I left office for another 1,000. Now there are nearly 6,000. But I wish there were 12, 18, 24, 30,000. I wish there were more. And the main reason I wish there were more is you. So I want to say tonight, look, I would have come here because I believe in you and it's exciting. And you renew my faith in the future of our country. But there is a very particular reason that I believe in the KIPP schools. And I want to try to say this because this is what I want you to think about when you go back home. Today, there are about 1.8 million students in these almost 5,800 charter schools. The stimulus bill, the Reinvestment and Recovery Act in 2009 that the President supported, put in another $650 million in investments. But there are still some challenges that I see as somebody who believed in you before you were you. One is, there's still people in the public school establishment who fight charter schools, which I think is a mistake. Two is, there are still only very few charter schools that are actually working with the public schools in their communities to give all the kids the benefit of what is proven to work in successful charter schools. And the Gates Foundation once, a couple of years ago, did a study saying there were fewer than 20 or something. Very low number. The third thing is not a problem for KIPP, which is that not every charter school works, and the whole deal was you get a special charter, you get exempted from a lot of the rules, you can be creative, but you have to perform. The oversight is not always there. But the fourth thing is the reason I really wanted to be here tonight. I wish there were 10 times or 100 times as many KIPP schools, because you have proved that you have solved the #1 challenge in American education. As a laboratory of democracy, you have proved that you can replicate excellence, that the KIPP model will work in a rural area or an urban area, it will work across racial and ethnic and cultural. And that's what we have to do in America. Innovation is not just coming up with a good idea. Innovation is rapidly replicating excellence. That's why Silicon Valley and other centers, the computer interchange companies in the Washington, D.C. area, the video game companies in Texas, the technology corridor in Massachusetts, all of them together pioneered changes that then rifled throughout the economy in the years when I was president and helped to generate those 22+ million new jobs that you clap for. It was not just the people that came up with a good idea, it was the rapid spreading of them and embrace of them throughout the economy. We have never done that right in education. I used to tell people, long before I ever thought I'd be president, just when I was working in all these national education groups, that every problem in American education had been solved by somebody somewhere, but the solution didn't have enough legs. I had a friend from the Mississippi Delta, where the KIPP Delta School is located, named Ollie McLemore, who was the principal of the most successful junior high school in Chicago, in the neighborhood with the highest violent crime rate in all of Illinois. She had a 0 dropout rate. The test scores were off the charts. All of her kids went to high school and finished, and nobody copied it. And it drove me nuts. Because if you look at America's position in the world, our young people actually do pretty well in elementary school compared to our competitors. They start slower. But then, by the time we're in middle school, there's a big gap between how we're doing and more than a dozen other nations. And by the time we get to the end of high school, there is a chasm. And that, plus the burden of paying for a college education, caused us to drop over the last dozen years from 1st to 14th in the world in the percentage of our young people with a 4-year college degree. That is not good for America. Not every job in the 21st century will require a college education, but almost every job will be created by someone who has one. And so